Hello everyone and welcome. In this video I'm going to be designing a landscape module with an abandoned train tunnel in Bricklink Studio. Let's go over the design features and put something together.
Hello there.
Alright, let's roll through a brief list of features for this build. So this module is mainly about transitioning from the upper terrain level down to the lower valley, but with some visual interest. As the title suggests, this module will be designed around an old abandoned train tunnel. As I said in a previous video, my city is meant to capture the feeling of an older historical city that grew over the years. In keeping with that story, this abandoned tunnel will feature a decommissioned section of track that used to run through it. And both of these features together should create a point of interest that will add a bit of storytelling to the city itself, and also give everything else some room to breathe. The tunnel entrance will be cut into a rocky face that will fill the remainder of the gap next to the tunnel, and this module's elevation change will be rather steep, but that won't be the case for most of the modules in the layout. The steeper transition here will make the tunnel stand out more and provide a ledge for the sidewalk on the upper section. The sidewalk will get a decorative railing that will run along the top of the rockwork, and in addition to making some regular vegetation on this one, I'm also going to add a bunch of overgrowth in places that groundskeeping might not be as easy, like around the old tracks. And with that, let's get started. As always, I start with my mills work. The base is getting some unique plating on one side to give me an outline of where the cliff edge and tunnel entrance will end up. The cliff has to be far enough away from the edge for the sidewalk above. And then I start laying down some plates and wedges as a placement guide for the abandoned track segment. This will also serve as the old ballast that still sits underneath these abandoned rails. The ballast transitions into more of a rocky color as it goes into the tunnel. I put the track on the side of the base plate for two main reasons. The first is so that it can easily line up with the subway loop. It's placed in such a way that one switch is all it would take to reconnect this line. And the second reason is to keep it as separated as possible from the planned bridge that is going to go across the middle of the valley. Once I had a footprint for everything, I could actually start building. First up was defining the tunnel. I want this to be old, so I went with a construction style that uses wood supports to reinforce the walls. On the outside of the entrance, I put angled buttresses to support the cliff face on either side. I see these types of reinforcements around old train bridges and overpass retaining walls in my area. The outward angle on these is pretty subtle because I'm working with some pretty limited space on the outside edge. And I'm leaving some snot bricks up the sides of the tunnel entrance so I can attach a more decorative archway later. With the front of the tunnel mostly in place, I switched back to making the tunnel walls to get things up to the correct height for the sidewalk. Once I have the height set up, I can start filling in the rock face next to the tunnel in a very free-form way. But right as I was about to get started on that area, made an on-the-spot decision to leave the space behind the cliff empty. I can use this as an area for some stories later, and open spaces don't use any bricks. As you've been seeing throughout the video so far, I like to use mixed techniques for my organic builds like rock work. I'm still working on mixel and ball joint connections and techniques to get more interesting positions and compound angles, but on this build I did include some snot-built sections on the front of the cliff face. I prefer the mixed look because it changes up the texture in ways that you can't do with slopes. I tend to use a lot of wedges and curved slopes on the forward-facing sections. These smoother curves and smaller changes in depths really soften some of the harder slope edges and add a lot of depth. I also snuck in a couple of dark green 1x1 round plates with the bar pieces. I'll use these to attach some vegetation later. I don't have a lot of details to add as I work through the rest of the rock work, so I'm going to step aside and let you all decide if this style is for you. So you may find that this section is getting a little bit steeper than some might have expected. I mentioned at the beginning of the video that this module will eventually be next to a bridge across the valley. The base of the bridge needs to start right at the edge of its module, so that steep cliff gets us to the right height without cutting too far into the base plate. I should have plenty of room to line up everything and support the eventual bridge. After finishing the last forward-facing section of the cliff, the last part of the structure is the sidewalk and its railing. I plated over the cave and the tunnel space below and built the sidewalk deck to the same height as the modules in the city. I didn't really have a plan for the railing or its base, and it's pretty simple, but it turned out quite nice. It starts with a row of masonry bricks to transition from rocks to concrete, and then some inverted slopes and channel bricks for some texture. Finally, a row of brackets with cheese slopes alternating with plates that have the closed bars to decorate the edge. I made the railing a good height to keep minifigs safe from falling off a steep ledge, and the sidewalk is tiled with the usual pattern. With the structure done, it's on to the small details. First, I need to finish off the tracks that the tunnel used to service. I used a single straight track section and an old dark gray sleeper plate to start. I then put down various dark brown tiles as rotted railroad ties, and the last step was to just kind of dirty up the whole area with a variety of plates and tiles in different browns and dark oranges. I also put a safety fence in the tunnel so minifigs don't go wandering and get into trouble. So where I'm from, old decommissioned stuff like this was typically maintained just enough to be safe, but otherwise it was left for nature to reclaim. So I went over once more and added lots of grass growing wildly amongst the old tracks, just like I'm used to seeing. I added a small rock formation sticking out of the grass in the open space just to break up the flat section that I still had. And the last bit of vegetation are some small bushes coming out of the rocks on those bar pieces I added earlier. All that remains is the decorative archway for the tunnel entrance. I used the 1x2 rounded plates as the basis for the arch. I alternated sand blue ingots with medium nougat 1x2 rounded tiles to give it some color in a heritage palette, and curved it to match the archway. I used a 1x3 rounded plate to connect the two sides at the top and added a diamond piece to bring it all together. Here's a look at the finished design. I like how it turned out, but that steep rock face will need some softening as it moves under the bridge. That's all for now. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to drop a like and subscribe to keep up with our progress. If you want to see more of what's been built so far, you can check out some of our other videos here. Thank you so much for watching. Keep on building. Bye for now.